We'll start up again with member for Chilliwack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to continue debate here on Bill 10. Bill 10 is just going to allow us to continue to be responsive to the needs of people, business, communities, and to see through the pandemic and into a strong economic recovery that supports all British Columbians. It's an interim spending bill in between now and our budget, and it's not uncommon for governments to have interim supply bills. I'll just speak quickly about the budget and whether it will support people through COVID. So Budget 2021 will continue to focus on keeping people safe through the pandemic, and we'll do this with an eye to how we position our province to seize the opportunities that recovery will offer. Path forward is not the same for all people or sectors of the economy, and recognizing this, our support and investment must be targeted now, which is why we so desperately need to pass Bill 10. At the start of the pandemic, with greater uncertainty about how the impacts would be felt, we invested with broad tools to quickly provide support to as many people as possible. As we continue through our pandemic response and recovery, and identify those most affected, our support has become more targeted to address the specific needs of particular groups and sectors. And this is supporting all sectors, Mr. Speaker. At the same time, we are maintaining the flexibility to respond to new and changing circumstances and support people and businesses across BC. And you'll see this this flexibility reflected now, Mr. Speaker, in our day-to-day decisions, and you'll see that reflected in our budget as well when it comes next month. Mr. Speaker, there's been lots of talk about ICBC in this debate, and I don't really want to bring it up again and affect folks' tender feelings over the disastrous management of ICBC under the last government. And, there's been comments from other members of the House that we're calling them criminals. We're certainly not calling them criminals. We don't believe it's criminal. But, a lot of people are talking about ICBC, but not enough people are talking about the fire sale that the BC Liberals had when it came to land. Selling land to many of their donors, actually, Mr. Speaker, sold $493 million worth of land to balance their budget. This is land that they could have gotten $860 million for. That's $367 million worth of public assets that the BC Liberals, sold off just to balance their budget. Sorry, $367 million that they forego by selling off this land in a fire sale. Just beyond the pale, Mr. Speaker. Also, I think it's easy to forget the draconian cuts that the BC Liberals made to our public services over the years. It's, brings me to tears, really, Mr. Speaker. It's in many ways, not in many ways, it is shameful, Mr. Speaker. I mean, this is now we're getting lectured about budgets and the like, I'm just, as you can tell, Mr. Speaker, I'm almost speechless. We're getting lectured about budgets and supporting people through COVID, and folks don't want to pass this bill, which would be very irresponsible, very, very irresponsible, and yet the record of the previous government is just shameful. I don't know how you can keep a straight face and lecture us after that disastrous record. I was a school trustee, Mr. Speaker, for 4 years under the BC Liberals, and I remember the cuts. Lots of cuts, no increases. We had to cut busing. We had to cut supports for students that desperately needed these supports. It was every year we were cutting educational assistant hours, which which just affected the most vulnerable students and was really upsetting to me, Mr. Speaker. I'm still a little angry over it. We also, here in Chilliwack, very few capital projects, very few. But in the last 3 years of my tenure as a school trustee under a BC NDP government, we have 2 new schools on the way. We have business cases that have been accepted by the Ministry of Education for several expansions in our school system. This is the difference that this government is making in the lives of British Columbians. And this is why we need this interim supply bill today, Mr. Speaker, so that we can continue to support British Columbians during this difficult time. And I just don't understand arguments from the other side. They're not even arguing about whether we should support people. They're arguing about things that have nothing to do with this bill, Mr. Speaker. And I'm like I said, Mr. Speaker, I'm almost speechless. I'm having a hard time articulating my thoughts here because it is so sort of bizarre to me that we are even debating this. We're debating whether we are going to pay nurses, doctors, teachers, social workers, whether we're going to support folks in poverty through our social programs. I know that the BC Liberals don't want to pay people fair wages. They're obviously against community benefit agreements, which ensure fair wages for local folks, Indigenous people, women, and other underrepresented groups. And I know they don't want to pay people a fair wage, but now they don't want to pay people at all, Mr. Speaker. I think that I'm probably going to end it there before I get angry, Mr. Speaker. And I just like to urge my colleagues across the aisle to vote yay for this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.